The inevitable has occurred in the NBA. The Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets have advanced to the Western Conference Finals. From the moment that Chris Paul was traded to the Rockets, fans and journalists around the league anointed them the true challenger to the Warriors. Before the combination of the two of the best guards in the league, no one looked like they could be able to challenge Golden State this season. But here we are. The Rockets earned the number 1 seed and both teams have cruised through the playoffs to the conference finals to meet the only team that could challenge either of them, each other. This video will serve as a series preview for the Western Conference Finals. What matchups do I think are important, where will each team find an edge, and who do I think will ultimately win? The first thing to look at when considering whether or not a team can defeat the Warriors is the Kevin Durant problem. He is such a huge mismatch at 7 foot tall with a smooth jump shot and an incredible handle. If you put a poor defender on him for an extended period of time, you are cooked. The Rockets don't have anyone who is going to lock Durant down. No one in the league does. The only player in the entire league that comes close to being able to defend Durant is Kawhi Leonard. But the Rockets do have multiple guys who can guard Durant for limited periods of time and attempt to limit his effectiveness. Luke Mbah-a-Moute, PJ Tucker, and Trevor Ariza will likely get a lot of the guarding duties on Durant. I foresee Ariza guarding him to start the game, and he will likely spend a lot of time on Durant. Trevor is long, lean, and quick, and his lack of weight is what prevents him from guarding most power forwards. However, Durant doesn't have the weight to back him down on the block and get to the rim. Now, this isn't to say that Ariza is going to lock him down, but he simply has the length and quickness to keep a hand in Durant's face and at least make it somewhat hard for him to score. And then Mbah-a-Moute and Tucker can both do serviceable jobs off the bench as well. Having 3 guys that can do this job and shoot threes at the same time is huge for Houston, because it allows them to switch. And switching is the key to stopping Durant and the Warriors as much as possible. The Warriors run a lot of motion offense and use a series of screens to release their shooters in Thompson, Durant, and Curry. If Durant is running through a series of screens and you don't switch, his defender might fall a foot or 2 off of him. If he gets the ball running, he can then rise up uncontested or put the defender in the terrible situation of having to close out too quickly and Durant can simply go by him. And the same thing applies for Curry and Thompson. By switching, you can limit this gap. When you switch, it prevents the screener from having an effect and the new defender can push out onto the person running past the screen. But this will cause problems if you are switching smaller players onto bigger players and vice versa. And here is the good news for the Rockets fans. With a lineup of say Chris Paul, James Harden, PJ Tucker, Trevor Ariza and Clint Capella, they can switch from 2 to 4 onto Durant and from 1 to 4 onto Thompson or Curry. This can get even better if you play Tucker at the 5 and bench Capella, or running a lineup with Paul off and Harden at the point guard. These lineups provide even more versatility and allow you to switch even more positions than when you have Paul or Capella on the court. This defensive flexibility will be huge for the Rockets and should allow them to trouble the Warriors more than any other team has this year. Plus, I haven't even spoken about Capella, who is going to be a huge barometer for this team. Clint is one of the best defensive centers in the league and is excellent when he gets switched out onto the perimeter. Not many big men can guard Durant on the perimeter, but Capella will give it a crack and he isn't a complete liability when it inevitably happens. He will struggle on Curry, but every big man does. The important thing is he will keep in position and make it tougher than most big men do. And his rim protection is key. A lot of teams have to bench their big centers against the Warriors because they are too slow and they lose out on the rim protection. Well, Capella will get to stay on the court and protect the rim, and if he can make it tough to score at the rim for the Warriors and the Rockets' wings can limit the shooting, then they might make the Warriors struggle enough during the series. And Capella will be able to punish the Warriors on the other end as well. And that is where the value is. The Rockets will want to come up with strategies to keep Capella effective defensively so he can play as much as possible. None of the Warriors centers match up well with Clint. JaVale McGee's IQ is simply way too low, and he'll get caught out of position too much, allowing for easy lobs, or he won't go help and Paul and Harden will get to the rim too easily. Then there is Pachulia, who isn't nearly athletic enough for Capella and will get ruined by lobs and offensive rebounds. Finally, if the Warriors are playing their death lineup, Draymond Green is probably too small for Capella, but the defensive genius has found ways to limit other centers in the past, so I wouldn't put it past him to limit Capella effectively. Moral of the story is that Capella will be huge in this series, and his ability to affect the game on both ends is so important for the Houston Rockets. The one factor we haven't discussed for Houston guarding the Warriors is Steph. This is one of the biggest benefits of having Chris Paul. He's one of the best point guard defenders in the league and is super smart on that end of the floor also. It'll be the whole team that will have to limit Curry with hedges on pick and rolls and smart switching and trapping, but I'd allocate Paul for most of the defensive one-on-one responsibility. If he can stop Curry getting loose and breaking down the whole defensive structure, it'll add to how much they can limit the Warriors. And guarding Paul on the other end will be a task for the Warriors. In his final game against the Jazz, you could see how much Chris Paul wants the championship. He played one of the most dominant games I've ever seen and scored all of Rockets' clutch points in the end of Game 5. Curry is a decent positional defender, but he won't bother Chris much and he will force Steph to work really hard on that end of the court and hopefully try and tire him down for the offensive end. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw the Warriors put Thompson on Chris Paul and Iguodala on James Harden, and then try and hide Curry on one of the shooting wings on defense. Thompson will be key in this series and will have to try and limit whichever of the guards he's responsible for. Clay is an incredible defender, and he'll use his length and footwork to bother Paul or Harden. I think the likely matchup will be him on CP3, as it makes sense to then put Iguodala onto Harden. The Rockets simply don't have the shooting wings that can punish Curry on the offensive end. Say you hide Curry on Ariza, he isn't going to be posting him up or taking him off the dribble, and if he does do that, then Harden and Paul aren't using the ball and you have simply succeeded. It also allows you to preserve Steph's energy for the offensive end. I fully expect the Warriors to do this and would be surprised if they didn't stick to it until the Rockets came up with a way to punish Steph Curry on the defensive end. When it comes to guarding Paul and Harden, I'd have one rule: hands up straight and move your feet. Never reach, and try to limit passing lanes through hedges and off-ball movement. This will limit the amount of times they foul and get beaten off ball. Harden is a king at drawing fouls, and you have to limit him as much as possible in this area. It will frustrate him and hopefully get into his head that he can't score as well as he would like. A lot of the series will depend on limiting turnovers as well. Both teams are excellent in transition and will score most of the time the other teams turn it over. So if you can limit these turnovers, you will stop a lot of easy points for the other team and be able to dictate the pace of the game. Paul has been exceptional at limiting turnovers, but Harden has been prone to turning it over in the playoffs before. And in the last 2 games in the Utah Jazz series, Harden didn't look like himself after a knock to the head. I don't want to speculate that he might have been concussed, but it certainly looked like it had an impact on him. He didn't score well, his passing was slightly off, and his defense dropped off after he'd started really well on that end in the playoffs. If Harden hasn't fully recovered or he starts off struggling, I wouldn't be surprised if the offense ran through Chris Paul mainly and he played off-ball as a shooter and secondary slasher. Obviously, if Harden is feeling 100%, they go back to splitting the ball handling duties 50-50, but if Harden is still hurt, I'd want to maximize your efficiency and give the ball to CP3 to limit turnovers. But what about the Warriors? What is their strategy? I think against Houston, they're going to have to move to more pick and roll than they usually do to stretch the defense. Steve Kerr has famously said he introduces more pick and roll as the playoffs go on, and that he doesn't like it during the regular season as he wants everyone on the team to be involved. But running Curry and Durant and Curry and Draymond Green pick and rolls will be the key to winning this matchup. The pick and rolls force the Rockets into horrible defensive decisions. If you don't trap Curry, then you're at the mercy of his pull-up 3 and attacking you off the dribble. And then if you do trap Curry, then Durant or Green are open, and even if you rotate, the Warriors are so good at moving the ball that they will usually get an open shot. Despite all the strategy that I spoke about for the Rockets on defense, I do not think they'll be able to stop the Warriors from scoring all the time. There is a reason these guys are one of the greatest teams of all time. They have 4 All-Stars, 3 of the best shooters ever, and the perfect glue guy on both ends of the floor. So it sounds dire for the Rockets when you're stacked up against all of that, and it is. I think the Warriors should win it in 6 games, probably stealing 1 home game and winning everyone in Oakland. But that is the thing that gives the Rockets the smallest of edges: home court advantage. They put a huge amount of effort into winning as many games as they did in the regular season and solidifying home court advantage for the entire playoffs, and it will now pay off. The biggest advantage of this is having the first 2 games in Houston. If they can win these, then they'll have a psychological edge of being up in the series. Then if they can capitalize and steal a home game off the Warriors, they'll be huge favorites to win the series. But home court advantage against a team as good as the Warriors is a double-edged sword. Sure, you can win 2 and start up, but you can also lose 1, and then have to go play on Golden State's home court and try and steal 1 back. This swing can be even more damaging to a team's psyche, and Harden and CP3 will have to bring their best to ensure that they win the first 2 games. I think this Rockets team could win the series in 7 games, and are probably the best team ever in the West to go up against the Warriors. Either way, it should make for some absolutely amazing basketball, and this viewer is keen to watch. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below who you think will win and why.